Hey guys, welcome to Stewarding the Wealth Transfer. Well, I'm tired. I just got back from Bend and it was amazing. It was so much fun to really meet Lauren for the first time and her awesome family. We just had a great time. And so I thought I would kind of go over Bend and tell you what I learned. And I've been reading a lot of the reviews and you guys are very gracious to us. And there's definitely things that we learned. But you know, when you start something new, God puts a burden in your heart. One of the things we talked about at Billionaire Bootcamp was what's the creative cycle? How do you do things? And you start with your mission statement, and then the first thing you do is meet the needs. And as I've been praying, I've just been thinking about, God, what is the needs that these people have? And I kind of thought I should show and kind of model what it looks like to take an idea that you believe is from God. And it's kind of like taking a bowl of spaghetti and, you know, there's the old joke about pitching it up on the wall and seeing what sticks. And so I was really happy. It was a very unique event. And there's a lot of things that I picked up over the years that I don't see other people do. And so I'll just kind of tell you about it. And I'm going to just, you know, I haven't got on here for a long time because I've been working so hard for this, but I'm super excited about what God's doing. One thing, lunch at Larry went really well, and there's some people who there was some confusion, and I have to figure that out because I think it's important for people to see the businesses. But what was so funny is I'm not, and that's probably not too shocking, my kids could have told you this, I'm not overly tech savvy. I do have a 40-year-old degree in computer programming, so I don't know what that qualifies me for, but you know, things are a little different. I was trained in RPG2, COBOL, and Fortran with a card reader, so it's a little different now. Anyway, I luckily, by the grace of God, had given people a WhatsApp, but I had all these people show up, and it was so much fun for them because Lauren was answering the door, and
Party in the summer.
we just had people piling in, and we did a very loud crowd breaker that just started off with such a bang, and people were having so much fun getting to know each other. And then we went to my storage facility and we met my manager. Except before we got there, there was like 9 or 10 cars and there was a gap. And I had in my mind how many places I could go because I thought I could show them another storage facility. I should show them a couple other comparative apartments, and I know how much they rent for because it's a small town. And I wanted them to see them. But that just didn't work out. And so people got split up. We ended up with 3 different groups of cars. And I thought, I didn't give them an address because I didn't know the order. And so I was like praying. It's like, God, what are we going to do? These people are from California, Massachusetts, Chicago, and they're strewn all over Longview. And I didn't give them my cell phone. And so I was just so stressed out, but I did do a WhatsApp, and so they all started bombing in on the WhatsApp, and I gave it to one of the other guys who's way more tech savvy than me, and he started giving out the address, and everybody found it, and then from then on, I gave everybody the address. So we went to the storage, and we talked about what a great investment that was for me and Tracy, and I didn't really tell them about how hard we dreamed about that, but it was over a decade of my life I dreamed about, hey, I think I want to do a storage facility. Before that, I wanted to do a mobile home park, but I feel like a lot of mobile home park owners kind of take advantage of retirees, and so I wasn't so keen on that idea. But the storage is great because you can take advantage of everybody. I mean, everybody needs storage. Actually, I'll tell you an interesting thing. As a storage owner, I do think I told these guys this. There's an inverse relationship in storage customers with income. And when I got into storage, that number was 80,000. And that was, you know, I've been doing it for over 15 years. So the number is probably 100,000 now. But people who make over 100,000 don't really want to do storage, and so often they'll build their own. I mean, they have the audacity to build an extra garage so that Tracy and I can't make, an extra good living. But, they do that all over. And so you end up working with people who are really, most of your customers are having a pretty tight time. And, they may want a 3-bedroom apartment, but they can't afford that. So they'll take a 2-bedroom apartment, and then a storage facility for a 10 by 10 in our market is about 150, a little more, a little less, depending on whether it's heated. So we talked about that. I didn't really go into the heated, unheated, but it's a very great business. And when you do the math, just to share a little bit of the things that we talked about, when you do a math on a 10 by 10, if it's unheated, we'll go down to 145 in our market, and if it's heated, it'll be 155. And we do have, it's incentive pricing. It fluctuates depending on the market and our demand and our openings and stuff. So it's a little bit like an airline. It moves a little bit. But we're basically getting $1.50 a foot for rent. Now, then we went to my apartments. It's called West Point, and they're really nice apartments. For Longview, they literally are some of the nicest apartments in town. But those rent for like $1.31 a foot. So you start to do the math, you start to go, oh my goodness, you're getting $1.31 a foot, which isn't bad on a nice apartment. But then I've got some really big ones, and I barely get like $1.10 a foot. So you think about a really nice 15-year-old condo, big townhome with 2-car garage, and you only get $1.10 per square foot. You get nothing for the garage. And then you have a can of air, and you get $1.50 a foot. So the can of air costs about 20% to build of what the house did, and yet you get a 25% more rent. The sole focus wasn't just real estate and finance. We talked about how God has blessed us for a purpose, and how we jumped in and helped a crisis pregnancy center purchase a great building in our town. And I think God's got great things for you to do as well.
A couple of days to really just figure out what the Lord is calling you to, and what that looks like. That how can you be implementing this prompting that you're starting to feel.
People liked Lunch with Larry. I didn't hear anybody rave about the pizza, but I thought it was pretty good since I took a carnivore break. Then we drove 4 hours from here. It's an hour to Portland, and then 3 hours from Portland to Bend. And the weather did not disappoint. It was amazing. And it was really fun. And the Atkinsons were just great. And what we did is we really focused on relationships. And it's my conviction, and in my experience, as you encounter wealth, you're going to be influenced by certain people, and you have to be cautious. You have to be very intentional with who is going to influence you with your spending. And so during Billionaire Bootcamp, the first thing we did was really burrow down and try to make friends. And it was really good. It was a great church to do it in. They were so gracious over at Hope City. I've been, lifelong friends. They do a really great job. They have a new church, and they opened it up to us, and they were, just so gracious, and it was really nice. And I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you some of the wins and some of the challenges. I didn't know how big, I opened it up to 200, and I don't think I would do that again. I think that would have been too big. We ended up within the 60s. I think we had 65. I took volunteers. I had friends. I didn't know what help I would need. And so I had some people that came to help. And so they didn't, it didn't cost them anything, but they had to get themselves here. Speaking of getting themselves here, we had many people drove more than 12 hours. I mean, people drove from California. 2 cars came from Texas. 1 car came like 13, 14 hours from Montana. A lot of people from Oregon obviously drove, but people flew out from Massachusetts, Chicago, lots of Floridians. And so people came a long ways. One of the games we did is we had people line up for how long they came. And we got to see, you could see who came the farthest. We had them line up according to what state they came from. Because what I've noticed when you do speaking, and if you've ever experienced this, if you go talk in front of a group, and you might do an announcement or whatever, and you might say, hey, I really like to fly fish, or I really like hot rods, or whatever you say, and then somebody in the back will go, yeah, I like to fly fish too. You're talking about that hot rod. What was that, a Ford Cobra Kit car, or was that a 55 Chevy, or was that a 52 Ford that you had? And so people will just talk about that because you got to know things. And so when we signed in, we had a name tag on one side, and then our favorite, that was kind of loud, sorry. We had our favorite investment and our favorite hobby on the other name tag. And so people were getting to know people. And to be honest, it was my goal that people, especially men, I think women do much better in church. And I'm just going to maybe rant a little bit, but as a man, I'm a very intentional person, and I really do like to connect with other men, but I feel like in church, I don't think they really want us to connect because they don't give us enough time to connect, and they don't ask us any questions. So I end up with all these acquaintances, and I think they're really great guys, but I don't really know anything about them. But here at Bend Bootcamp, we got to know things, and we had a connection. I had many people talk about the connections they had. So it just provided a great foundation, because as we began to talk about what it was like to come into great wealth, you know what you need? You need somebody that's going to get in your grill and say, hey, how much are you going to spend on your house? What are you going to live off of with all this new money? And how much are you going to give? And I feel like God's challenged me that people should give as much as they live off of. And I know that that's kind of beyond what the Bible talks about, but it's what we talked about. And so as we got into the nuances of wealth and how to hold on to it, I really want next time to work on the ratios, because I kind of prayerfully submitted these different ratios for, what if you have a bunch of dinar and it goes off and your XRP goes up, and so you got $15 million liquid. What should you begin to live off of? And we compared it to the NBA and the NFL, and my brother was a former professional basketball player for over a dozen years, so he shared some good stories. And one of the things that he said is, he goes, Larry, you have to let them know how high the odds are that they're going to run out of money. He goes, Larry, you don't understand. All the non-superstars run out of money. It's just, it's how many years can they last after they get out of the league. Most of them don't even last 3 or 4 years. Some of them last 10 years. But what a bummer to be approaching your 50s and then to be, running out of this money, or even in your 40s. And so you don't know a trade or a skill. My brother's been quite resilient, and he's done a number of financial real estate investments where he's done really well. But he shared some of those stories, and he's flipped hundreds of homes, and he talked about that and some of the funny ones. And so he was really kind of a favorite. And then Lauren's going to bring a home, and she's fiery. She's not as tall as I thought she was. It was kind of funny. And so you maybe saw this post from her. She posted this on YouTube, and it was really funny. I took that picture of her next to my brother, but we rented a house and invited them to stay with us, and my brother and his wife, and then the Atkinsons, and we just had such a great time. But I'm telling you, God showed up. We reached out. We sought God. I think friendships were born. Accountability happened. People had practical answers and, kind of philosophies of money expounded on. And I really feel like they left with some ideas of how you steward significant wealth and how you don't become a failed statistic. We learned that, 80% of NFL players within 2 years of leaving the league experience financial duress, and 60% of the NBA players within 4 years of leaving the league. So if you played 4 years in the league and you come in at 22, you're 26, by the time you're 29, 30, you're in financial duress. And that's the unfortunate reality that's going to happen so often during the wealth transfer, because all these people who have so much money are not going to have the experience. And between my brother and I, as we talked about at Bend Bootcamp, we've had 5 different wealth, 7-digit wealth experiences, and he was pretty clear with me what was happening in his life. And then I never thought I would get to experience that, but then I did. And then I wouldn't think that living on 20-25% of what I was making, I would go through the crash that I did. But then I had to work another 6 years just to rebuild, and then God blessed, and it's really amazing what he's done for us. But we've been faithful in giving, and we talked about giving. And you know, my favorite thing to support is missions, because I believe that we're called to co-labor with God. We're called to work with him and to do the work and sweat. And he inspires us to do things, but we've got to run ahead and do it. And he confirms his word, and he speaks to us, and he gives us, you know, prophecies through other people. And sometimes he speaks to us in our quiet times with God. And so, we talked about that. Those are some of the things we talked about. So where are we going to go from here, Larry? I mean, you might be going, well, that really kind of stinks, because I really wanted to go. And, you know, it was really stressful for me because I didn't know what was going to happen. And, you know, you go, well, Larry, you got a lot extra, so it's not a big deal to you. You should just risk money, and, you know, you don't expect a return. But I don't think that's kingdom. I don't think that's stewardship. And so I didn't, I mean, maybe I didn't fully get permission to risk, but I risked 10 grand to do the first event. And I just have to say it was a raging success, and I'm so appreciative of each one. And let me just show you a bunch of the fun pictures we had. And we laughed together many, many, many times. We cried together, actually more than once. And I'm becoming a crier as I get older. But, you know, we talked about the creative cycle, and some people said, a number of people actually said, that was the most amazing thing, because if you've got a destiny to start a ministry, or you've got a passion to start a business, how do you do that? What do you look at? The number one thing is your foundation. And I shared my you know, why I exist, and so what my mission statement is. And so my mission is to live without regret a godly, wise life of continual growth, to be a loving, considerate husband, and encouraging and involved father, and to invest proceeds from my successful businesses into the kingdom of God around the world. And from your mission, which, you know, ministry is based on Bible verses like Ephesians 4:11, pastors and leaders and apostles and prophets are to equip the saints to do works of ministry, and you're supposed to serve, you're supposed to give. I mean, all these things are biblical mission directives. But then, you know, the number one thing, whether it's a ministry or it's a business, what you need to be concerned about, and you keep evaluating these things. Your mission statement, hopefully you get it right. You don't have to keep changing it, but you need to know what the needs of the people you're trying to serve, because you got to serve them. And, you know, Bill Gates, he served more people than almost anybody. Now, I don't think he's such a noble person anymore. I think it's kind of becoming clear what he did. But, you know, 10 or 15 years ago, if you're like me, you just thought he was an amazing guy, and he served literally hundreds of millions, even billions of people have been served by Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, and so they've served the world, met the world's needs, and then the world has rewarded them with lots of money. And we need to serve people, and it's a kingdom principle. And those who serve, the more you serve, the more you get. And I'm not saying that money is the number one goal. It is a huge factor in business, but in kingdom business, I don't think you can justify going into business and not making money. But sometimes you need to risk the money, and so many people in the kingdom don't want to take any risk, and they just won't do it. But we talked about what risk would look like, and so let me tell you about what I'm thinking, you know, going forward. And so Lauren and I, we're going down the same path, and a couple times a year we're going to work together, and she's going to put together an East Coast Billionaire Bootcamp, and I'm going to continue to develop things, but her specialty is more crypto, and she's more of a fiery preacher, and my base is more business and probably stewarding wealth, because it's something I've done and then I failed at and then I learned how to do, and it's becoming a refined thing. And I've got a lot of opinions. I'm a number-oriented person. And so I think people really enjoyed the perspective and the challenge that they got. But God, showed up, and that's what I want to do. And so I'm super excited that I'm planning 2 more events in 2025, and then even a 3rd event. Because as I shared with the group, what the needs of people have is you need to understand how to steward great wealth, but then you need to know how to build great wealth. And that's really like mergers and acquisitions. And so what Lauren and I did together was Bend Bootcamp 101, but I see the need for a 201. And so I've contacted my son, who is an analyst for one of the biggest developers in Dallas, and they've just done some of the craziest big developments in Dallas. And he did commit a weekend to me so that I can fly him out and he can speak to you guys and help you understand how to take down big complexes, because I believe during the time of the wealth transfer, there's not going to be people just doing deals for 1 or 2 million. It's going to be 10, 20 million, 50 million. And these are people that aren't used to doing this. So you need to rub shoulders with people who on a daily scale are, literally, my son is on the core team of lead executives. He's not the highest there, but he's been doing it, and he's worked for a couple companies, and they're, managing and developing billions of dollars worth of resources. And so, and we here in Longview have done tens of millions of dollars, and we've done prototypes for even more digits of over $100 million of conceptual ideas here in Longview. And so, well over 100 million. And so we want to pass that on. So what's going to happen is we're going to do another Bend Bootcamp 101. And then in probably October, we're going to do another Bend Bootcamp 101. And I'm sure that the wealth transfer will have been engaged by then. And so that one, we're going to step up and start doing really kind of first-class facilities. So we're going to do one more in July that's going to be the same price that we did last time. And so I'm going to do the same thing for Lunch with Larry, and I think that's probably going to fill up really quick. And so you could follow me on Eventbrite, and I'll kind of make arrangements for that. And then, like last time, the first 30 people who signed up, almost all of them did Lunch with Larry, and I'm going to refine that. The good thing is people are going to get a little bit better experience. It'll be a little different. We're going to have different people, different speakers, but we've got a real powerhouse speaker. It's hard to beat Lauren, but this isn't beating her. It's just different. And so it's a ministry friend that is very well known in many circles, and I hold him in the highest regard. And he's going to kind of double as our speaker, as well as his heart for ministry and intercessory prayer is just amazing, and his anointing is high. And so I will talk at the next video about who is going to join us, but I'm just super excited. So we're looking at July 25th and 26th, probably a day before that. So the 24th, 25th, and 26th is what we're looking for. And it will, again, be out here in Longview, and we won't be going so far. It'll be in the Longview area. And I've secured another church, and you're going to be hearing more about that. And then we're going to just not do it in Longview in October. And I have to confirm with Lauren because she wants to go to this, and I really want her there. And we're going to do a Bend Bootcamp 101, and then we're going to have an overlap we'll finish 101 in the morning, and that evening we'll start 201. And that's going to require different speakers and different people And so you can't go to 201 unless you've done 101. And you might be going, well, Larry, that's not fair, because you guys are going to talk about how to really make the money, right? And really go to big level. Yeah, we are. But there's going to be times when we're going to do deals together too. And so we're going to talk about and discuss, and we need to get to know that the people that we're befriending have integrity. And so I'm super excited about what God is doing. And I'm sorry that I haven't been able to talk so much. I've done videos. I get to talk a lot. But it was so amazing to be with all of you guys. And I hope that there's 80 more, because we're going to basically cap it about 80 to 90 people. There will be less than 100 at this next one. I opened the one in Bend to 200, but I think that was too big. And I really think 75 to 80 is an ideal number. And we did a lot of time with tables at 6 per table. We did a lot of conversations. I actually had a good friend. He is becoming a friend. I actually have to go in a minute and talk to him. His name is Dale King, and he works a lot with some of the Patriot groups. And he goes, Larry, and he did this evaluation, and it was amazing what Dale did. But he goes, Larry, tell me you're not going to just sit there and be a talking head all day, okay? Tell me you're not just going to grind this information. You're not going to let them debate it. And I started laughing, and I go, Dale, they are going to have to debate it out, fight for it and push back on each other. Because what if you have $10 million in the bank? How much do you get to spend per month on yourself? And what if somebody else thinks that that's too much? I mean, you have to be able to deal with the pressure of godly people who love you and care about you speaking out. But you know what? In our culture, we don't do that. We just let business people, when they come into lots of money, or, I remember when a pastor's wife won the lottery when I was in college, and her dad was a denominational leader. What a nightmare that was. I mean, everybody was laughing and kind of condemning her, but she won, I think, $3 million back in the 80s. It was an amazing amount of money. It'd be like 10 million now. And so there's a lot of all kinds of stuff. But how do you steward that kind of money? So if you have a passion to get closer to God, if you have a passion to learn the nuances of money, if you have a passion, especially men, I mean, the women always do better than men at making friends. But I have to say, I heard from man after man after man, we really bonded in our group. It was really so much fun to do that. So I would just encourage you to think about it. It's not the only thing I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the topics we covered and where we're refining it going forward. But it's really fun just to check in. So I'm sorry I've been away. It was worth it. I just feel like have got to kind of lay down. We've actually had amazing weather here in Longview, and I hope that you're having good weather where you're at. But I got to kind of finally relax a little bit. That's my timer. I have to go. You guys have a great one. Thank you. Bye.